Hi guys, back with another video. This video is actually more of a chit chat story time of how we found out our dog had epilepsy and him being diagnosed, our journey so far. It hasn't been a long journey, but I thought it would be helpful in case anyone's going through something similar, and just so we can connect, and also just in case anyone else is curious about what to do if you find out your dog is having episodes or seizures or anything along the lines of that. And so wanted to share our story and how it's been going so far, and if that's something that you are interested in, keep on watching. So I'll start from the beginning. It started in November. That was the very first episode that he had when we found out that he was having something that wasn't normal, something was off, and that was the very first one that we saw. So it was Sunday, it was right before a birthday party, normal afternoon. My husband had went out to the backyard and had left the door open because the backyard connects to our bedroom at my mom's house, and so he was out there and Gatsby followed him and was outside with him, and I was in the room, and my dog had randomly came inside and he was kind of, something was definitely off. I saw him on the porch kind of walking this towards the inside, but kind of like walking very slowly, like he was confused, and just something was off. He looked just very out of it. His eyes were kind of glazed over. His body looked like his paw, he was kind of lifting his paw like he had a hurt paw, which that was the very first thing that we thought was like, maybe he hurt his paw. Did he, like, something bite him on his paw and he was trying to tell me like his paw hurts, or like did he somehow hurt it? I don't know. And he wasn't alone out there. First off, like, he was out there with my husband, and he's an inside dog, so he is never left outside by himself unless one of us is with him. So definitely thought that I was weird. He was coming towards me like he was trying to tell me like that his paw was hurt. Like, that was my first instinct. So I was just like kind of confused at first, and then he started like his head started like wobbling, kind of like a bobblehead, and he just started doing that, and his body went stiff aside from his head was kind of moving, and he started slobbering, and he was just very stiff, and I just started freaking out. The first thing that at that point when he started like shaking, I thought seizure, and I just started googling like dogs having seizures, what does it look like what is going on. Like, I had no idea. I'd never experienced a dog having a seizure. I'd never seen it. I had no idea what it looked like. And so that was just my first instinct as soon as I saw him kind of shaking and like slobbering. But again, his eyes were open. He was totally awake. He just wasn't totally aware of what was happening. Like, he looked very confused. And so I just started freaking out, and I called my husband in from outside, and I'm like, come here, something's wrong with Gatsby. I've never seen him do this before, like freaking out. And we just grabbed our stuff and like hopped in the car, and our first instinct was to go to the vet. And we were 2 minutes, not even, from my mom's house, and we were on the main road headed towards the vet. And this was like at this point 5 minutes after his episode had started, and he went back to normal, totally normal. His eyes were back to like a more state of awareness, of presence. He wasn't shaking anymore, trembling, nothing like that. His slobbering had stopped, and he was totally normal, like breathing like your normal dog breath. Like, we had rolled down the windows, and he was like looking outside the window in the car, and he was just loving the car ride. But you would have never guessed he had an episode of any kind 2 minutes before. And so we were just confused, and we're just like, well, we don't want to go to the vet, pay an emergency pet fee, and he's acting normal, like if it only lasted 5 minutes, and this was his very first one. It just didn't make sense. So we went home. We ended up bringing him with us to the party that we were going to go to, and just kept an eye on him for days after that. With like, we were just being, I was being paranoid and like kind of wanting to keep a close eye on him to make sure he was okay. And sure enough, he was fine. This happened in November, like I said, and the rest of November went by, the rest of December went by, the rest of January went by, no seizures, no episodes. February came around, and the middle of February he had his second episode that we saw, and this time it was at 2 in the morning instead of 2 in the afternoon, and it was pitch black. We were in the middle of sleeping, middle of the night, and sometimes he sleeps in the middle of us, and I felt him trembling again, and for a second I thought he was having a bad dream or something, but usually when he has a bad dream he'll whimper and he'll kind of like cry in his sleep. So that kind of gave me the hint that it was another episode, so I turned on the lamp. Sure enough, he had that same kind of blank face, confusion, stiff, like he couldn't move, like his body just goes limp, but his head kind of does that again. And again, it lasted 4 minutes or so, and it stopped. And then he was totally normal, acting fine. But that night, since it was his second one, it wasn't a one-time thing anymore. I booked an appointment to see the vet 1 or 2 days later, I can't remember, and they did blood work for him. They checked all his reflexes to make sure it wasn't anything to do with like his brain. They kind of did seeing if he would react if he were to like point, like just your normal reflex kind of exercises, and all of that came back normal. His blood work came back normal. His lungs and heart and all that seemed fine in a normal range, and there was no concerns there. So the best thing that they recommended was to again monitor, because the way they explained it is dogs can sometimes have a seizure or two in their lifetime and then never again. So it wasn't particularly an area of concern since there was only 2 at that point. So she said we can keep a journal of the 2 he's had so far, and then should he have another episode, definitely bring him back and talk about medication at that point. But after 1 or 2, it's just not necessary to put him on medication that soon, and it's just kind of premature to do that. So we monitored him like the vet suggested and kind of kept an eye on him, and he did about 2 weeks later in March, the beginning of March, he had another episode, his 3rd one. And I started to keep a journal to kind of help me keep track of times when this was happening and the dates that these were happening. That way if we ever had to go back, we knew exactly what dates these happened and how far apart they were and what time of day they were. The 3rd one happened at night, late at night, 10 or 11, and it was just nothing triggered it. Literally, he was coming in from going to the restroom, and so that, yeah, there's really nothing that kind of triggers them. And so we made an appointment to see another vet. We had went to the first time an emergency vet. The second time around we went to our normal vet here in Austin, a local one that we always go to, and we talked about getting him on medication, and they had recommended phenobarbital, which is a human grade seizure medication, but they recommended a very, very low dose that is suitable for dogs. And we had a prescription made for him, and since he had 3 at that point, we thought it was safe, it was better to have it on hand just in case. So we got the prescription, picked up the prescription, and just had it ready to go should we need it, hoping that we did not need it. And a month later, exactly to the, like almost to the day, in April, early April, he had his 4th episode. And at this point he would have had 1 in February, 1 in March, 1 in April, so 3 months in a row. And we knew that we had to put him on medication at that point because they were starting to become regular. And compared to his first one, where it was 2 months apart, this one was starting to become frequent. And so we started to give him medication in early April. But it was kind of hard to monitor. He had, for phenobarbital, he is actually on 32.4 milligrams each tablet is 32.4 milligrams, and he takes 2 of those per day, and he is 20 pounds about. So that's what we were prescribed by our vet, and that is what he's been on. But again, in the beginning of April, it was very hard to keep track of because it's 2 per day, and we tried to space it out between 12 hours, so 1 in the morning, 1 in the evening. And I'll admit it was very hard. I'm working from home, so I was adjusting to working from home, and I was missing some, and I was only doing 1 per day for like the first week. And he had his 5th episode, and I had a feeling it was because his medication wasn't according to the prescription, the prescribed dose. So we started to make our journal more detailed, and we started having the dates lined up on each line and writing the time that we're giving him at every single day, so that we can look back. Did we give him 1 today? Did we give him his 2nd one today? Did we give him his 2 yesterday? It's very hard to keep track of times when they're happening 2 times every single day. So the journal has been helping since then, and he has been on, he's had 2 per day since his 5th episode. His 5th one was in the middle of April. His 4th one was in the beginning of April, so that was 2 weeks apart. And so we really wanted to, since the duration between episodes was becoming smaller and smaller, we really wanted to follow the rules and do it right and make sure we were doing our part and giving it to him on time. So we kept that journal, and it helped, and we haven't missed any days since his 5th episode, and thankfully it's now the beginning of May, going into the middle of May, and he's been fine. And the phenobarbital, we recently had an appointment where he checked his phenobarbital levels. I think that's how they described it. I hope that's right, but they checked his levels basically to make sure that the phenobarbital was not making anything inside of him worse, and that he's still in normal range, and that it's not affecting his body for the wrong reasons. And so everything came back normal, his test came back normal, and the phenobarbital seems to be working to control his seizures, and at the same time his body seems to be agreeing with the medication, which is great. So he will just need to test those levels twice a year. The phenobarbital test is kind of expensive. It's I believe we paid $120, but that's with a discount that we have through our vet that we use. So at this point we're trying to figure out how, since it's going to be $120 every 6 months at this point to get the test done to check his levels, we're thinking, and I guess this kind of is where it comes into play on putting this video up, is if you've experienced something similar, do you have insurance for your dog? And if you do, the problem that we're facing at this moment is it worth putting our dog on insurance, because it's considered a pre-existing condition, and most insurances do not cover pre-existing conditions. So our best bet in our minds is to just have a savings put aside for these medical expenses, for the phenobarbital test, for the phenobarbital tablets themselves that he'll need every week. Gatsby, stop. He'll need, he takes these every day, so he's gonna need, we buy them in 1 month doses, so he'll basically need a new dose every month. And then the phenobarbital test twice a year. The monthly supply of tablets is about $30 or $32 every month, and the phenobarbital, like I said, is about $120 twice a year. So I think our best bet is to save. We're kind of just like figuring out what works best for us, but at this point our mind is saying that we should just put a savings aside for dog expenses in general, instead of getting an insurance plan that doesn't even cover this pre-existing condition. And so that's where we're at right now. And so he's had 5 episodes at this point. It is now the middle of May almost. This is actually Mother's Day that I'm filming this, and he is doing fine. He's great. He has not had an episode since April 13th, and it is now May 10th, sorry. So he's almost went a month, and the medication, he's again been on a whole month of having medication twice a day like the dose says, and everything is looking really good so far. So now at this point we're just figuring out finances and planning and making sure we're still continuing to hit these 2 doses per day, and kind of keeping up with this. I mean, this was just like totally unexpected, and not to mention he's only 3, so they were very surprised. Both the vets that we took him to were surprised by how young he was and how early he got epilepsy. But I mean, it just happens. The way they described it is some dogs just develop it, and it's just in their cognitive, something in their cognitive development has caused this, and there's really nothing that is like pinpointing to what, if it was, I mean, on their end of things, based on what they're seeing, there's really nothing preventative that we could have done to prevent this from happening. And they just said some dogs, it just happens to them, and there's really no real reason. But the vets have been very helpful with like printing out documents on seizures and what to like look for and what vets recommend, and all of the vet approved methods of treating and coping with this new lifestyle and this new kind of change in our dog's lives. So it is different, and when we got him 3 years ago, we didn't know we were signing up for this, but we wouldn't change anything. Like, we're definitely grateful to be able to help him. And the way that I described it to my mom is, I am so thankful that we got him and not another dog, because who knows if he had went to another family, if they would have been financially able to take care of his seizure medications and his regular testing and just like keeping up with his health. And we're very fortunate to have that capability to do that. And so I think it was meant to be. I'm a firm believer in everything happens for a reason, and I think we got him for a reason. And I am glad that we are able to help him, and I'm glad that he's still able to have a happy life. He is 100% normal. Like, he acts, the medication doesn't give him any side effects, which we are so thankful for, and he is still the most energetic dog and very smart and intelligent, and knows all the same tricks he's known since he was little, and he is just adjusting to this very well. And yeah, I think that at this point we're headed in the right direction, and I would be interested to hear if you are going through something similar with your dog or even cat. If this happens to cats, I'm not totally sure. I haven't even got that far. But yeah, if this is something that your family has dealt with in the past, like, I would love to hear your story and share it in the comments below. He's currently barking at a neighbor or a neighbor's dog. So I will, I guess, close this video out with Gatsby. So 1 second. Okay guys, thanks for watching. Thanks for hearing about Gatsby's story, and we hope that this helped you if you have never experienced this before. Hopefully your pets are healthy and happy and never have to go through this, but if they do, and if it's unexpected like it was for us, I hope that this video helps if you're not sure what to do and you're just wanting to hear someone else's story and how we are dealing with it. We are, okay, I'm tired too. We are so thankful for you watching this video, and until then, the next one would be more beauty related and more beauty talk, but I think that this is an important platform to share this resource if it's helpful to you. And also, again, if you have anything to add to my story or anything that you think that I would find helpful, I would totally appreciate it and welcome those comments. So until next time, bye.